Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Hitman's Haven podcast, where football is the family business. All right, I am joined by Tazim Wajed, along with his son, Trey Watson. They are also intimately acquainted with Green Bay Packer wide receiver number 9 on your program, Christian Watson. We have brother and father in the house. Gentlemen, good evening. Pleasure to see you.
Always.
All right, let's get it, man.
Let's do it. Let's start with some news in the NFL and some what were you waiting for kind of news coming with the new extended replay rule, also the first down technology rule. Trey, let's begin with you this time. Which rule do you think has the biggest impact and makes the game even better and more correct, if you will?
I mean, I think the one that'll get the most traction is the first down, marking it electronically, because it's just like, what have we been waiting for? You have the USFL used it. Now the UFL is using it. And it's like, okay, those leagues can use it, but the NFL, the biggest business in the sport, is waiting around. So that one will get the most traction. I think the being able to speed up the review process and kind of just nip those blatantly missed calls in the bud, the errant face mask, the terrible holdings that are missed, stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that'll just help the flow of the game, and it'll eliminate a lot of that bickering from fandom and coaches about how do we miss these calls. Well, the reality of it is someone's not missing it, but we have to help the refs that are on the field, right? They're humans. They only have 2 eyes at a piece, and there's only so many of them out there. So that'll help a lot.
Right. Tazim, what about the tush push? It was tabled. As a former player, and you guys can both weigh in on this as former players, do you think the tush push is a safety issue?
There obviously are some things as it relates to the tush push that, just from a common sense standpoint, you can see that something catastrophic could possibly happen with it. I still don't think that is really the reason for it to not exist. I think the reason for it to not exist is twofold: between the integrity of the game itself. This is football, it's not rugby. We're not doing scrums. That's not how this game has grown. That's not the entertainment value of it in terms of what fans have been able to watch. So there's that. And then the other thing is they're doing it from a technicality in the first place. So the technicality that got us here with that change, I think it was like 2005, when from an officiating standpoint, it was we can't really determine who's doing the pushing. So we can't penalize the offense for doing the pushing because they're coming and clearing guys off of the pile. It could be the defense. So we're going to let them, if they're within 1 yard, we're going to let them push. Well, it wasn't ever about making a play design to do that. So, I mean, it's crazy for me as a football player, football coach, football fan, and someone who absolutely loves this game. I love every bit of it, from the physicality to the high level intellect. All of the things about this game I love. There's nothing about that play that reminds me of football. It actually is someone taking advantage of the inability to officiate a rule from 2005. That's what it is.
Yeah. And the league couches it as a safety issue. Trey, what are your thoughts on that? Do you see it as a safety issue at all as a former player?
Yeah, I mean, I can see the hazard of it, right? Like, just comparing it to a rugby scrum, they start already interlocked. So you're avoiding the high impact on your neck and head area. Football, that's not how we operate. There's a line of scrimmage. So you're actually creating an instant high impact, likely on the head or neck area. Or if guys go low, which is what they've been trying to do, then it's on a bunch of guys' knees and ankles. So none of that is a win. And that's certainly not something you want all the time. Another part of it is along with the officiating, the push part, it's the Eagles' offensive line is getting away with an illegal formation every time. They're all lined up in the neutral zone. And so it's creating a lack of distance between them and the defense that isn't normally there on a properly officiated normal snap. So I think from that perspective, that's the biggest, cheat of it that the Eagles are benefiting from, is they're allowed the rule of the pushing for sure, like whatever. They've kind of taken advantage of that. But them lining up an inch behind the center's, helmet, which is not normally where they're allowed to line up. Now they're closer to pushing the defensive lineman back. So that, from my perspective, that's the biggest issue that's kind of been revealed. And it's not talked about as much, but that's definitely a part of it. And as a defensive guy, it's already hard enough. You're already reacting as it is. If they're taking away 6 to 8 inches on a play where they only need 6 to 8, that's the difference.
No doubt. No doubt. And it is always a game of inches. Also this week, we heard Roger Goodell speaking out about diversity. When Roger Goodell speaks of diversity, it kind of hacks me off. We got the Rooney Rule. We still don't have a lot of offensive coordinators of color, defensive coordinators of color. And we know that is the path to head coach for almost all. So what is he really saying to us? I mean, because to me, in my estimation, there has not been an honest effort to promote diversity among the head coaching ranks. Tazeen?
Look, you can, a whole bunch of H2O coming my way, and I can tell when it's H2O. But if you piss on me and try to tell me it's rain, we're gonna have a problem. And quite frankly, man, now I've been on this earth long enough to understand when someone is saying one thing, doing another, and also when those in power choose not to give up their power. Look, the NFL is a history. I'm talking about, obviously, from its inception to how it's been run ever since, of the good old boy network. It's been that from the very beginning. It is that today. And what we're asking of them, it's right now just being talked about. And there are some things that have been put into place that are technicalities of effort that aren't necessarily experientially successful. Because the Rooney Rule, we've seen all of the basic interviews that aren't going anywhere just for the purpose of meeting the Rooney Rule. They'll bring a guy in who wasn't even in the league. They did that a couple of times in a couple of situations in this last cycle. Guy wasn't even in the league. They're interviewing him for the head coaching job as if it was a real, genuine interview. So you look at that and you look at the league. And to me, man, at this point, I'm not getting angry about things that have been the way they are, and we can see what they are. I don't think we let them stand without addressing them. But at the same time, again, don't piss on me, bro, and tell me it's rain. We can see it. We can see what it is.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree. It's been disappointing to see, not in just the NFL, but across our country, the way diversity is being attacked in just a completely backwards manner. And it's just always, at least it seems to be, a lot more fluff than fact when it comes to actually implementing it. So that part's disappointing. Okay. We'll see how it continues, particularly in the NFL. You want to see the qualified people that you see have resumes as legit as anyone get legitimate opportunities and be put in positions to succeed. The most recent example of D'Amico Ryans, guy climbs the ranks basically instantly coming out of his playing career. And he turned around one of the most struggling franchises in the league, probably in first season they go to the playoffs. Second season, even when there's some injuries and the quarterback is struggling a little bit, they still manage to make it to the playoffs again. So you like to see more of those situations, and hopefully, like we've been saying for a long time, they become the norm and not the exception.
There you go. Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, enough on the serious subjects. Let's have some fun. Let's get into our own little Hitman's Haven mock draft. All right, Trey, you are on the clock. Pick number 1. Tennessee Titans are on the clock. Who are you going to take as the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the easiest slot to get to begin. 2 and 3 would have been the hard ones, but I mean, I think the Titans go Cam Ward. That's who I'd pick. There's no reason not to. They need a fresh start at quarterback. And if, new GM, young coach wants to get going, you start that with a quarterback. Guy is the consensus number 1 across the board. As impressive as it gets, bring him in, get your franchise headed in the right direction.
I like it. Tazeen, you were on the clock. The Cleveland Browns. Who do they select? This is where it gets tricky.
Well, it doesn't for me because I hear all the noise. I hear all the rhetoric. But, bro, look, Shedeur Sanders to me is without a doubt one of the most NFL ready prospects you're going to get. I mean, there is nobody who is going to have a son prepare for this moment in this time better than the scenario in which Shadur Sanders has been developed. And as the GM of the Cleveland Browns, I'm running that thing up there with our future franchise quarterback, Shadur Sanders.
All right. I like the pick. All right, Trey, you're up next. New York Football Giants. Who they taking?
So this one is, I agree with my dad. This one I think is where it gets tricky. I think you have a guy who is very well deserving of being the first pick in the draft because he's a talent unlike any other. So it'd be a shame to see him fall to this point. But I think in some other drafts with less quarterback needy teams as well, this other player would have been deserving of a number one pick. So I say the quarterbacks are gone. The Giants have invested in their quarterback. We're taking Abdul Carter at 3 and thanking the heavens that he wasn't taken at 1.
Abdul Carter. Wow. All right. Interesting. Number 4, the general manager for the New England Patriots is played by Tazim Majed tonight. Who are you taking?
And again, here we are. And this is where you got to look at it from the standpoint of this team has been reeling since Tom Brady left. Really, right before he left, when things kind of got to the point where, okay, he's losing even the moderate level guys, the supporting cast, because we can't say that Tom Brady played with a whole lot of superstars. I mean, you're going to have a hard time naming besides Gronkowski. And of course, we know that the freak came through there for a couple of seasons. And they didn't even win a Super Bowl with him, though. You know? Right. So besides that, it's time, man, to inject a difference maker into New England. And we need another corner on the other side of Gonzalez. And we need another outside receiver on the other side of Diggs. Who's the only one who can give us both of those in one? It is Travis Hunter. That's correct, baby. Right. Travis Hunter.
Mr. Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
Right the pose. All right. And now it gets kind of tricky as well, Trey. You're on the clock. Jacksonville Jaguars. You're down there in sunny Florida. Who you taking to try to turn this thing around?
Yeah, in my opinion, the Jags have a couple different holes to fill. There's a lot of different ways they could go. If it's me, I'm saying, hey, I'm not worried about arm length. I'm not worried about any one specific thing. This guy held it down. I don't care if he plays on the right side or the left side. This guy has been the guy at the position since he came into college football. He shined at the combine. You know, he's held up against some of the best there were as edge rushers. And I'm taking Will Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU.
Look great at the Underwear Olympics. I mean, that kid can move for a guy that size. He's impressive. All right. Pick number 6 falls to the Las Vegas Raiders. Tazim, you're on the clock. Who you taking?
Look, as easy as my other ones were, this might be even easier, man. Tom Brady is running up there about as fast as Ashton Genty runs the football. And the Las Vegas Raiders have now replaced Josh Jacobs with probably the best running back prospect since Adrian Peterson. And I understand who we've seen in between those two guys. I mean, you know, we've had Bijan, we've had some other guys. This is different. This is a different level because we're not talking about just one or two areas. Literally, I can only name about one area that we need some work from him, and that's just let's get that pass protection down.
Okay.
But outside of that, man, this guy he's on a different level. I mean, this is Emmitt Smith with speed.
Wow. Okay. I was not convinced. I'm going to have to get on YouTube, look at some more highlights. All right. I like the pick, though. All right. Pick number 7. Wow. The New York Jets. You're on the clock. The world is watching, Trey. It's the New York media you're dealing with here. Which way do you go? Who do you pick?
Yeah, I think New York, they're they're retooling the offense, right? Lost Aaron Rodgers, replaced him with Justin Fields, losing Devontae Adams, but you have Garrett Wilson. Trying to figure out the O-line. I think there's a couple different ways we can go here, but I think a tool that is just extremely useful for a quarterback who's trying to get going, especially someone who can kind of create and make things happen. It's always nice to have that really, really good safe outlet underneath. That would also let Garrett Wilson played down the field. We saw this guy be a playmaker unlike any other at his position this past season in college. So I'm going Tyler Warren from Penn State.
Penn State, big tight end. Yeah, he can pick it up and put it down. Hey, either one of you can jump in on this, but does it matter that it's New York? I mean, do you have to have a certain kind of kid to deal with the media in New York and the scrutiny you get? What do you think, Trey?
I mean, I'd say at the quarterback position, you might want to be cautious about it because we know how important that position is to the success of your team and how their personality can rub off on just your entire locker room. I'd say
Sure.
at other positions, at the skill positions, yeah, there can be some personalities that might not work out the best there. But at the end of the day, these dudes are coming in to make a living, to make an impact at doing their dream job. If guys want to figure it out, they'll figure it out. And part of this draft process is finding those guys who are the right fit. More often than not, you're going to find that guy. Certainly don't think Tyler Warren would be a guy who's going to be an issue at all.
Gotcha. All right, Tazim, let's go down to Charlotte, Carolina Panthers. You're on the clock. What do you got?
Man, this one was kind of hard because I wanted to give my quarterback some help. Initially, I thought that might be the way to go. But at this point, he's shown that he can do a little bit. He can carry the offense a little bit. And they went first round wide receiver last year. I'm not like these other people who immediately jump on guys as they're developing and going through their process.
Sure.
So I'm not doubling up there this year when you have a talent like Nick Imawari right down South Carolina. So he's just driving maybe about 60, 70 miles to the border is come on up and bring that absolute. I mean, he is probably about as freakish a guy as you're going to get who actually produced. Because, see, that's where we kind of end up with some issues with some of these positions. You have guys who are these freak athletes who are not doing anything.
Right.
Well, Nick, yeah. We talking about a freakish athlete who also had freakish production. We're gonna go ahead and get that defense enforcer back there.
Okay, I like that pick. Pick number 9, Trey, the New Orleans Saints. Who are you going with?
I think this one's probably my toughest one so far, simply because the Saints need a lot, in my opinion. Outside of Alvin Kamara, they've obviously committed to Derek Carr at quarterback. They've got some questions at receiver, trying to figure things out. Chris Olave's injury status, so on and so forth. They could probably use some help along the offensive line. Defense, they have a lot of holes to fill, not a lot of cap space to do it with. So it's a tough one for me. I'm just going to go with a safe pick, in my opinion. And that's, hey, we're going to take Jalen Walker from Georgia. I think he can do a ton of different things. Wherever you put him on the field, you can figure that out. I think the fact that Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan, is still on the board, that would kind of surprise a lot of folks. But I think there are just some other pressing needs that, the way things have fallen, and that stuff can kind of happen sometimes.
Yeah. And Walker is a heck of an athlete, young guy. Probably get some good production from him. One of those Georgia guys that's asked the Eagles about that. All right. So moving right along, pick number 10. Let's go to Chi-Town. Azeen, you're on the clock. Who you got?
Well, there are a number of guys that Chicago has gotten in the free agency period, where they always say they win the offseason. So they've done a little bit, but in my opinion, they have got to continue to shore up their offensive line. They have to do better protecting a quarterback who they took number 1 last year. So I'm going to go ahead to Missouri, man, and I'm going to give them Armand Membu. Go ahead and help get that line, man. They're going to have who, in my opinion, is probably the highest ceiling offensive lineman, in this draft. And, young team, he has the opportunity to grow with that team.
Yeah, and he looks like he might be NFL ready and ready to play on day 1. So, absolutely. Okay, I like that pick. Coming up number 11 next is the 49ers. I'm sure Last offseason, they didn't think they'd be picking this early in the draft, but they're pick number 11, Trey. Who you taking?
Yeah, I think they didn't expect to be there this early, and I don't know if they'd expect this guy to be on the board. But the guy I just mentioned last time around, Mason Graham from Michigan.
Yeah.
D tackle who I think can do just about everything. He's a dominant interior player. And it seems like, San Francisco knows how to invest in the defensive line. They've done it consistently. Everyone that they've brought in, whether it's been through the draft or free agency, has found a way to help them. And they replenish some of that here with Mason Graham.
Yeah. They've been doing it since the 80s with those D linemen. They don't miss, it seems, up in Frisco with the D line. All right, pick number 12. Always a lot of fun. Let's go down to the Star in Frisco, Texas. Dallas Cowboys on the clock. Tazeen, who you taking?
Look, man, there are only a couple of wide receivers, in my opinion, in this draft who I would even think about spending a first-round draft pick on. But this one, I wouldn't hesitate at getting this guy if I was, Jerry and his crew to get on the other side of CD, and that's Ted McMillan. He's going to go out there and be my X because we already know that CD is going to move all over the place. So he's the moving guy. So let's let Ted get out there and see if they can put their number 2 on Ted and keep him from wrecking shop on him. And hey, look, they got a different offense if they get them another receiver out there.
Wow, you like him better than the guy like Golden who can take the top off with a lot of speed?
Yeah. Ted to me, I need a Drake London for Dallas.
Okay.
A Drake London type.
I see that
for Dallas, because if you all don't if you think about it now, Cook can still run, right? So we have already seen him with speed on the field.
Right.
That didn't do it.
Good point.
That didn't do it. That's not what they need. They need somebody who the other team has to cover all over the place. And with Ted, because he's such a great contested catch guy and he's a physical mismatch, in my opinion, they'll end up having to pick their poison and they would lose either way because they can't even double CD and win. So you're going to leave Ted one-on-one. I'm thinking he's winning a lot of them.
All right. I like it. It makes sense. All right. Pick number 13. Lucky 13. Going back around your way. Trey, we got the Miami Dolphins on tap. Who you taking?
I think for Miami, it's a must to continue to maximize the asset of Tua that you've invested a ton of money in. Got to keep him upright, got to keep him healthy. That's been an issue the last couple of years. For now, they have the receivers. There's been some rumors about things happening there. They have talent in the backfield, but they've kind of struggled to have a consistent offensive line. So I think here, going Kelvin Banks from Texas, it's a safe pick. Guy who played big time football, played a lot of games, played extremely well, been a highly rated guy throughout. I think it's the right move.
Okay. Now they say safe is death.
Yeah, well, when your quarterback is safe, that's how you win football games. So we'll do it that way.
No doubt. All right, cool. All right, we're going with the upside down horseshoe. Pick number 14, the Indianapolis Colts are on the clock. Tazeen, who you picking?
Hey man, this is another easy one. When you look at the team, you look at the holes in terms of the offensive side, you look at the quarterback position, and say, how are we going to get this young man on track? And it almost kind of goes with the same deal as Trey shared earlier, except we're going with the next best guy because we already got Warren off the board, and that's Colston. Colston Loveland is going to go to Indianapolis, and he's going to tear up them seams and inside area for whoever is the quarterback. I'm still rooting for Anthony Richardson to be able to do what he does. You got Alec Pierce who's going to take the top off. You got your route guy and Michael Pittman. You got the young guy who actually also can take the top off as AD. He can take the top off as well. And so, you will have your slot guy already who I think, he's one of the highest rated guys last season.
Right.
So, I just think this is the missing piece. This is the missing piece because you cannot, if we fill in all of these areas for you, Now, there's no excuse, bruh. You gotta be able to, we're giving you a Pro Bowl caliber tight end to go along with a high level a Z who led the league last year in yards per reception. You got a slot who's rounding people up. Let's go.
Right.
Let's go. Here, weapon. And now that's not even mentioning Jonathan Taylor, who is obviously one of the best backs in the league. So
yeah, he told the rock.
We're giving you your high level tight end. Now all the pieces on offense. Let's go. Let's get it.
Yeah, you got it there. All right, Trey, we're watching this one very close down here in the Dirty. The Atlanta Falcons feel like they're a piece or two away from being a real contender. You're on the clock. Who you taking? Pick number 15.
It's finally time to invest in an edge rusher. Everyone's been clamoring for them to do it for quite a while. I think there's two really good options. The way the board sits right now, I'm going to go with the guy who, he played football just a little bit down the street, and that's Mykel Williams from Georgia. Just send him a quick ride up. Don't even have to send a plane to him, and you're ready to go.
I like it. And that defense was pretty good last year. So he would definitely add another couple of lot more pressure for the opposing quarterbacks and offensive lines to try to shore that up. All right, pick number 16, Tazeen. We got the Arizona Cardinals on the clock. And they think they're not far away as well. But who you taking at pick number 16?
Well, the thing is, with Arizona, you just got to kind of look at it and say, which of these areas are we going to really tackle and where do we need the most help? This is where we're going to get that burner to open up the field for Marvin Harrison Jr. So we're going Matthew Golden to Arizona, and we're going to see what young Marvin Harrison can do now, because I can promise you that the safety is going to have to stay their asses back when Matthew Golden is out there on the field.
All right, good pick. I like it. Always love when these wide receivers come off the board. All right, pick number 17 up to Cincinnati. We got the Bengals, who have fallen from, these guys were in the Super Bowl just a few years ago. What in the world is going on there? But it almost looks like a rebuild to me. But at pick number 17, it could be worse. But Trey, as their GM, who you taking?
We have to figure out the defense. Can't afford to invest another high pick in the offense with the way things are going. So, he's on the board. He's a freak of an athlete. Looks the part for sure. Can we maximize his production? You have to take a chance and figure it out at 17. That's kind of when those picks tend to happen. Taking Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M.
Right, good pick. I love it. All right, let's talk a little bit about pick number 18, the Seattle Seahawks. They made a little bit of noise with a couple of wide receiver signings with MBS and Cooper Kupp. But now you're on the board, Tazeen. Who are you taking at pick 18?
Seattle. Do we really know what we are working with yet for our quarterback? Because last year, man, we had, he's back there running for his life, right? So can Darnold do that? Can Darnold survive and do the same thing? I have a hard time thinking that he's going to be able to go back there. So I got to get me another lineman, man. And this is where I'm going with Gray Zabel, who really can work all the way across that line for the Seahawks. And he's going to come off the board for me. Nobody else is going to get this guy. This is that swing lineman who can do whatever you need done. And Seattle needs pretty much all of it.
All right. Sounds good. I like the pick. All right. Let's wrap up this edition of the Hitman's Haven mock draft with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at pick number 19. Trey, you are on the clock. Who you taking for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? You going offense, defense? What do you like?
Yeah, I think we're going to close it out with a good one. Bucks lost some players. One guy they were able to retain, though, probably he might be the longest tenured Buccaneer. I don't know if it's him or Mike Evans. That's Levante David, the linebacker spot. Probably get another year or two out of him. But they've kind of cycled through guys at the other inside linebacker spot. Yeah. You bring this guy right here in, you're likely set with him for quite a while. Probably my favorite off-ball linebacker in the draft by a pretty good margin. That's Jahad Campbell, Alabama.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he plays like an animal too, man. You gotta love him. He plays with some intensity. I mean, just a linebacker's linebacker, I guess, was what Trey is saying to us.
Absolutely.
Bringing the heat. That's
No
right.
doubt. All right, gentlemen, that was good stuff. We're going to pick it up with pick number 20 in our next episode. But in the meantime, any parting thoughts on these first 19 picks? Trey, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think relative to like looking at the mock drafts, the consensus big board, gonna be some differences than what you're probably seeing out there. I think there's a couple trades that obviously we didn't go into any trade scenarios. There are a couple of those that I see some teams could be moving up. Like my dad said, the quarterback situation, I don't buy the fluff with Shadur. I think there are a couple teams who might still be interested in getting in that conversation. Other than that, I think there's some really high level players left on the board. I think particularly for Green Bay, the way things have shaken out so far on ours. If I'm the GM for Green Bay, I'm loving it. I have several options at spots that I really, really want to make happen. And, I'm licking my chops waiting for one of them to fall to me. So that's where I'll leave it.
Okay. Tazeen, parting thoughts?
That's exactly it. If you look at it, I think what ends up happening, especially if you have players picking, in the case of having Trey and I pick a draft, it's a little different than these pundits, right? It's a little different than the draft gurus and all of them, because what you're seeing is it from a player perspective, and what did we see missing? What do we believe, if we're playing, will help get that accomplished? So you may be, like Trey said, you may be seeing this thing fall a little different than what you have seen on some of the other mock drafts.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're going to pick up some more on that in the next episode. I'm going to write myself a note so we can have a little bit further discussion on that, because that is an interesting point. Because I always wondered where these baseball card collectors who become sports writers end up digging up these stories and coming up with these narratives. So yeah, the player perspective is much different. And we see that every Sunday on the pregame shows anyway. So it's something we should talk about a little bit more and delve into from the player perspective and how it figures into the draft. So gentlemen, always a pleasure. Great to see you on the first edition of our mock draft. We will pick it up with pick number 20 when we continue. But for now, that is the Hitman's Haven podcast, another special edition. Be sure to pick us up on your favorite podcasting platforms, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. So that's it for us. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.